1,000 Tales presents The Priest by Scott Godfrey. Read by Kingsley Harper. It was a Sunday when summertime had ebbed, when trees not yet barren somehow echoed a future time of barrenness as they swayed in mute rhythm, yet likewise seemed stilled. The church was a massive edifice of stone. The building arched upward and outward, as if staggering over the street before it, as if about to fall, though this was mere illusion. The worshippers in their best attire had congregated, dour and grey in suits the colour of funerals in winter or dresses like burnt leaves shuffling into ashes. The faces were somehow the same and somehow different, as if through a lack of imagination some deity had etched a singular form, stretching it and collapsing it on different bones, and nothing more. As if it were not a congregation, but a single man, woman and child, repeated indefinitely, indifferently. The priest in his vestments had begun. From his lofty perch above the worshippers, he began, and they listened, and the intentness of their gaze betrayed some fervent hope in him, just as each word uttered betrayed his desire that he only existed so long as he spoke, and nothing more of him would be left when the speech ended. He was a tall, balding man with spectacles, and in his vestments seemed almost a pagan priest of old, though this was absurd, of course, to some. The service seemed a sad door affair, concluded as the sacred body passed from person to person before being devoured. Then, as if a great wing had brushed against them, all they left quick as they arrived, a flock of identical faces and voices, fading in the distance as they went further and further from the church, till only the priest was left behind. He sat in among the pews and let the darkness envelop him a moment. Behind him was a glass fresco depicting a martyred saint being driven with nails into oblivion. The rounded window above provided the only light. The cavernous cathedral echoed outward, and he shut his eyes as if trying to recall each face, but since they seemed the same, his efforts were wasted. "Care if I sit?" the man asked. The priest turned to see a young man walking up through the doors, though the doors were closed. "Of course, my son, please. Be seated." The priest continued to turn to the altar at the back, as if in deep meditation. "Quite a service," the young man said absently. The priest turned back to the man to his left and noticed him more closely. Tall, brown-haired, with a perpetual smile, and a brown vest and shoes of leather which seemed cracked and worn. The man almost seemed vaguely gold or silvery, but it was but a trick of the stained image of the martyr in his bloody black revelry of death, contrasting with the sun which made a shimmering glitter of everything, even in the dark. "Were you here?" the priest asked absently. "I didn't see you." "Oh, quite here. Always been here." "I see. Can't quite figure how you're here, though." The man turned to the priest and grinned a singularly savage grin. "I beg your pardon, my son. Well, it is daylight, isn't it?" The priest looked at the man more closely. His teeth. The young man's teeth were capped, not with gold but silver, an old trick, a last resort in case one's hands were useless and one's enemy was attempting to feed. "Well, as you can see, I am here, and it is daylight," the priest replied, gritting his teeth. "Yeah, couldn't quite figure that out. Not till yesterday. You're quite clever, arranging to always meet people at dusk. As for Sundays, I noticed you didn't greet people at the door. And as for the light, I checked with construction. That window was remodeled when you first settled in. Specially made glass, proof against the sun's full light. So that's how you're standing here, I take it. What do you want?" A bead of sweat dropped from the priest's balding brow. "Usually we'd settle these matters in less hospitable places. But here," the young man rose up from his seat to the aisle. "Hardly seems appropriate, I suppose, though I'll give it a try. What do you think I am?" "Oh, I know what you are." The young man handed the priest the picture. It was the picture taken 100 years before, in that long-ago, far-away city, when the priest had wandered onto a scene of violence. Newspapers had run the picture. The woman slaughtered, the man arrested, and the priest in the background, though he was not a priest then. It had been the scent of blood that drew him unconsciously onto the set piece of his undoing. "Do you think I am this man?" the priest asked. "Well, excellent likeness. Of course, tracking you down wasn't easy, but not impossible. Not for us. I assure you I am not the man you think I am. And I assure you you're not the first I've claimed." The priest rose and moved past the man into the aisle. He turned to the altar, and then to the man and the glass ornamentation of the martyr whose name he could not recall. "I have not killed anyone," he said simply. "Oh, I know. I even believe you when you say you haven't. Again, check the records. No murders in the area, no signs of trouble. Regular model citizen. You don't even go around children privately, always make sure their parents are there. Regular model citizen." He repeated the word sarcastically. The priest was not impressed. "Still, know what you are, and you know who I am. Not who, but what, yes. And got a job to do, and even if you haven't killed in 100 years, you still killed once, twice, 20 times. I killed 4 people before I gained control." The priest turned to the altar and walked toward it. "In the beginning, I didn't understand how my condition worked." He didn't bother looking behind him, even as he heard the stake being drawn from the scabbard by the man's left hand. "Well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Not knowing how to control yourself, I would reckon that counts as ignorance, wouldn't you?" Yes, I suppose you would too. You know." He still did not turn back. "I focused on killing grown men, usually criminals, drunks. It wasn't for any moral reason. Children were too small. Women would scream, and criminals and drunks made easier prey. You'd think it'd be the other way." He turned finally. "Going after the small or the weak, but the thirst draws you to the biggest, the loudest, the cruelest. Excuses aren't why I'm here." "Well, why are you here then?" "Obvious, isn't it?" "No, that's not what I mean." The priest took a final look at the glass rounded to a smooth decay and turned back to the man. "You're listening to me talk. Usually you'd just attack, ignore anything I said. Why the talk first? Well, it isn't every day one meets a monster in a place like this. Well," he grinned slightly, "your kind of monster. Yes, you heard about the others. Yes. Our line of work, we go after your lot, but with a few I'd make exceptions. You know, go after a few with a pulse, if the crime is vicious enough. Well, you know my record. The people I killed would have died by now anyway. That's not an excuse, just a statement of fact. Eventually I learned with a little faith. Yes, taking on the role of priest and comforter. Fancy that, eh? Well, I had to, after my epiphany. See, I realized that I couldn't live with myself the way I was, being what I was, so I changed." His brow beaded with sweat. His confession was a long time in coming. "See, I couldn't accept things after the 4th kill. Guy had a wife and child, and they saw me, and the look in their eyes." "So you went from parasite to priest. Lateral move, some might argue. I've helped people. I've moved to avoid being discovered till I came here, and I want to keep helping. Well, sorry to say your number's up." The stake was in his hand, splintered and raw and eager to feast upon the priest's body, and all it would take would be a single, well-placed strike. The priest did not move, could not really resist, since even in this moment somehow he felt all things would be made right, and under the hypnotic gaze of the hunter waited and almost closed his eyes when, "Pardon me?" The voice spoke quietly from behind the pair. The man turned. As they had spoken, a young woman had entered the cathedral from a side door. "Helene?" the priest said. "This is a poor time." "Yes, I suspect so. But we couldn't let things stand." "We?" both men queried. And the doors opened, and they walked in. It was as if a flood of echoes entered the cathedral, men mostly, dour and quiet, with women in their midst. And they were looking not at the priest, but at the man. "I thought you had all left," the man said quietly. "We had," Helene replied. "And then we waited and came back." I think you should go, the priest replied. We're not losing you, one of the men said. We need you. If you knew, the priest began. We do know, Helene replied in her summer dress. Why else do we not complain when you can't make it till the dusk? Why else do we not worry when you can't kiss the cross? We've known for some time now, and we knew when he came, trouble might be brewing. She indicated the young man with his silver teeth, and she did not smile at him. I've killed, the priest said simply. So have I, replied one of the men, a soldier. You can't. No, the priest began. We do, Helene replied again, and we're here to keep you safe. Doesn't mean we won't keep an eye on you, she smiled, just in case. But we like you. Then she turned to the man. And we don't like you. You do know what he is, what he's capable of then? The man asked, as if he had heard nothing of the conversation till this last moment. Do you know what we are capable of? Helene asked, and again she did not smile. Do you want to find out? The man licked his lips. His quarry was less than 2 feet away, and his own death was less than 5. There was no question these nice, dour, grey people who gained such solace in the words of their priest, who derived their only satisfaction from him, would not hesitate to tear him to pieces if he made a single false step. Can't really just let him walk, the man said simply. Well, that's your decision. Here's ours. He is our responsibility, and we are his. If he crosses the line, he's yours. Till then, if you touch him, they won't find your body. He read iron in her words. This nice young woman who had survived enough atrocity in life to make her threat as cool and calm as if discussing the weather. Well, then, I guess it's settled. The man put the stake back and turned to the priest. I'll relay this turn of events to my superiors. They'll send someone to keep a watchful eye, but we won't attempt this again. Not unless... I won't, the priest said simply, his tone awkward at being exposed and protected, loved and scrutinized and understood all at the same time. Well then, thank you for the conversation. I don't get a chance to talk that much in my line of work. And the man walked out through the crowd of people and did not look back once. If he had taken a final look at the priest, he would have seen him start to silently weep. The next week, as the trees greyed a bit in the valley and the summer sun ebbed a bit, the priest at his place of worship stood and all the people gathered about, even young Helene, who sat and smiled as the priest talked upon the virtues of mercy and the healing balm of forgiveness. There was a new member of the congregation, a nice young woman in the back, who sat and listened, rose and prayed with the others in her brightly scarlet dress, which clashed so with the clothing of the others. That and another noticeable point, for as they all said farewell from within the cathedral walls, she shook his hand, revealed she had nothing else in her possession, and smiled with teeth of silver which glimmered as she said goodbye. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this audiobook and want to support the effort it takes to bring these stories to life, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps me continue creating and sharing more stories with you. I truly appreciate every like, comment, and subscriber. It makes all the difference. Stay tuned for more, and happy listening.